Oh, let's get an idea from Gillian of what people in Brechin and elsewhere indeed can expect next. First though, Gillian, what's causing this storm to stay so long?
Well, the weather pattern is essentially stuck, Sally. We have this big area of high pressure, a blocking high over Scandinavia. It's holding this storm, this area of low pressure, in place, and it's set up strong to gale force easterly winds driving all that. And it's an unusual wind direction for us. In Scotland, our prevailing winds are southwesterly, and in the west, when we get a very wet spell of weather, the runoff tends to be into the sea. But for eastern Scotland, it's the river catchments, which when we're talking about this volume of rainfall, they simply cannot cope, and that's why we're seeing the conditions we're seeing. Certainly is, and throughout tomorrow we have these amber rain warnings, one for the Northeast Highlands, one for Murray and Aberdeenshire, Angus, Perthshire and Stirlingshire, and we also have an amber rain warning in the Borders and for East Lothian. That's already in force. It runs through until 6 a.m. tomorrow, but it's worth bearing in mind, Sally, that even once the rainfall stops, it will take a while for the river levels to respond. So for some, it will get worse before it gets better.
Gillian, thank you. More details in the forecast later.
Yes.
And talking of the floods, here's Gillian now with the weather and a very striking picture there from Murray.
Yes, the pictures really do tell the story, don't they, Sally, with this weather system. After a brief lull in the rainfall for some this afternoon, there is much, much more to come. Good evening to you. Yes, it feels like we're entering the next phase of this exceptional spell of very wet weather. From midnight tonight, the next red weather warning comes into effect from the Met Office for heavy rain, and it runs through the day tomorrow. We have various flood warnings in force, 5 severe flood warnings across Aberdeenshire, Dundee and Angus. In addition to that, 16 flood warnings and 11 flood alerts. We've already had way more than a month's worth of rainfall in some spots, and there is much more to come because very little change in this pressure pattern, that blocking high, keeping this area of low pressure in place, and those strong to gale force winds driving further rain into just the areas we don't need it. This red warning zone for southern Aberdeenshire and Angus, where we could see a further 100 millimetres on top of what we've had. So again, that danger to life due to flooding. We have an amber warning for East Lothian and the Borders for heavy rain. Here we could see as much as 120 millimetres over the high ground, so that will lead to severe flooding impacts. And through the day tomorrow, we have these amber rain warnings for the Northeast Highlands and more widely across East and Northeast Scotland. We also have those lower tier yellow warnings of high winds and heavy rain quite widely across eastern Scotland over the next couple of days. So this is the picture through this evening. You can see those strong to gale force easterly winds driving in that persistent and heavy rain, particularly to those red and amber warning zones. It will be chilly tonight, temperatures slipping into low single figures for some, touch of winteriness across the hills in the north, and those winds still strong to gale force. Into tomorrow then, we still have high pressure to the north, so this weather front still very much in play, bringing further rain in from the east. It does tend to track northwards, but it will be most persistent over Fife, Angus, Aberdeenshire and into the Northeast Highlands as well, where we'll continue to see those weather warnings in place. Later in the day, it starts to turn a wee bit drier from the south, and as we head through tomorrow night, that very persistent and heavy rain continues its journey northwards. You can see the bright green colours clearing the mainland, but it will be a slow process. Still quite windy for many tomorrow night. And then as we head into Sunday, we'll start to see conditions easing. It will be a drier day, the rain easing for most of us, and the very strong winds easing down as well. But as I mentioned earlier, it will take a while for river levels to respond. So we're certainly not out of the woods yet, Sally.
OK, Gillian, thank you very much indeed.